in Revelation 2 and 3, I think it'd be obvious that you'd come to the conclusion the last one he wrote to in chapter 3 on Laodicea, that describes where we are right now. So many ways. Now, I don't try to make it an exact fit, okay? Every jot and tittle. But, man, the comparison, it's there. It really is. So that'd be a fun study. That'd be a fun teaching. It really is, but it's going to take a while to do it. But you say from chapter 4 on, well, after chapter 4 on, then all of a sudden you come back now, and we've got these 7 weeks come back in effect all the way to chapter 19, the 7 years. You say, well, preacher, what about the millennium? If you want to study the millennium, and we'll do that in 2 weeks, you're going to have to study the Old Testament. Yep. Because in the New Testament, there's only a few verses in Revelation chapter 20 that cover the 1,000 years. There's no description. There's almost next to nothing there. So you're going to have to study where it is, and that's the Old Testament prophets. And remember, the prophets and the historical books, and there's 17 each. There's 17 history books and 17 prophecy books. They were all written at the same time about the same events. Now, the uniqueness of Isaiah is there's 66 chapters. Now remember, the chapter divisions are not inspired. They were put there afterwards. They're letters. They're written by letters and paragraphs. But boy, what a quinky-dink it is to realize the first 39 chapters deal with Israel's past, and the remaining 27 deal with Israel's future. You ever heard the number 39 or 27 anywhere in your study? Anybody want to think about it? Some of you already got it. I see it on your face. There's 66 chapters and there's 66 books. 39 old, 27 new. 39 past, 27 future. Isn't that unique? It can be fun. Really, it really can be fun to study your Bible. Okay, now, covers the period from the resurrection to the rapture. Well, she talked about this, I think, a little bit last week. People always want to argue, well, the word rapture's not in the Bible. Well, in our English translation, there's not, because there's not a word translatable. But when you read a Latin, which the Vulgate was written in Latin, the word rapture actually appears. Duh. Discussion finished. End of argument. There is none. Because our number of letters in our alphabet and the number of vowels do not equal Hebrew or Greek. They're different. So you can't come exactly. Let me give you an example. We talked about preservation. This is probably one of the absolute neatest examples of God in charge protecting our Bible in the translation we have against any error through time and translation. Let's go back to 1600s. King James authorizes an English translation. All right. The Church of England is nothing more than the Anglican or an offshoot of the Roman Catholic Church. Their practices, all their rituals, very similar. Well, in the Catholic Church, they sprinkle babies. They still do in the Presbyterian Church. You're looking at one. My mother said I screamed bloody murder. I don't remember that. She said I embarrassed her. Never noticed a thing. None whatsoever. So what good that did, that drop must have missed because it didn't wash something away. But the word there, Greek spelling, is B-A-P-T-I-Z-O. Baptizo, and that meaning, exact translation, is to plunge, immerse. Now, can you imagine the king and his leadership when they authorize and get to that, and it talks about immersion, and they're sprinkling babies? And you're talking about immersing believers, not babies. What you find there, the word baptize in the English, is not a translation. It's called a transliteration. It's giving this spelling to that word. Would you not say that God directed the writers to transliterate the word baptizo? And the translation went through, and it still means the same thing, to immerse or plunge, not sprinkle. So when we talk about preservation, you need to know what you're talking about a little bit, because somebody will want to argue and throw you curves, and you go, no, I don't know what to do with that. The bottom line is, do we believe God? Do we trust God that He did and is doing what He promised? Period. There's your choice. There are a lot of people who say they do. Talk about faith. That come up in a message this morning, and this come back to my mind as our pastor was preaching. Yeah, you wonder, well, how much faith do you have? Well, there's an easy way to determine that. The Lord said all you need is that of a mustard seed. A lot of times we think we've got to have a lot more. We've got to have as much as he does or she does or they do. No, a measurement of our faith is this: how much we trust Him. You say, well, how do you measure that? Real simple. How much do you obey Him? How much do we obey what we say we believe? Welcome to the church age. Sure is. We call it parentheses between the 69th and 70th week of Daniel. We studied that last week. The purpose of the period that we're in, brothers and sisters, is to gather out a people. He's not dealing with a nation. It's to gather out a people. What people? All people. Ephesians chapter 2, in your reading, please read that this week, because we'll still be in church next week. Read Ephesians 1, 2, 3, 5, and we're going to be in Acts chapter 2 tonight. But you'll find there in Ephesians chapter 2, or it's quite obvious that he's talking about a body of believers, and there are some Baptists who believe in local church only, because they say, how do you attend an invisible church? How do you give to an invisible church? Oh boy, that sounds theologically just absolutely just spiritual. If you read Ephesians 2, tell me this question.